Hey, it's Charlie from Charlie Reads and Reviews, and I'm here to do a possibility pile for August. In South Africa, we celebrate Women's Day on the 9th of March to commemorate um, the day when women marched to the Union buildings during apartheid to basically protest against the pass laws. So if you don't know much about that, please do go Google it to learn more. But a high level summary, there used to be these pass laws, which in essence was like a ID card, or if you are well aware of the Star of David that the Jews had to wear during World War II. A similar concept where black people in particular were given these pass books which would let officials know if they were allowed into certain areas and at what times they were allowed into certain areas. So you had to get basically a visa to travel to different parts of South Africa, within your own city. It was a total mess. So to commemorate that, we celebrate it every year on the 9th of August. It's a public holiday, and so unofficially August becomes Women's Month. Now, I'm not a huge fan of such things because this is the one time where suddenly everyone feels that they have done everything they need to do for women and our rights are suddenly equal. But I do like to use that as a guide for the books that I'm going to be reading in the month of August. But before we get into that, this is the wine that I am drinking today. That's Paul Cluver. Probably totally pronouncing that incorrectly. It is a Pinot Noir from 2020. And I like it. I had never heard of it. I found it on Checkers 60. If you're in South Africa, you know what that is. If you're not, Checkers is one of like our big, I guess it would be like a Trader Joe's kind of style. I say all these things like I've never been to a Trader Joe's, but I wouldn't call it like a Costco. I've been to a Costco, so it's not like a Costco. So I think it's like a Trader Joe's. It's just like a big retail company. And it's all over the country, and different ones have different sizes and have different options. And Checkers also has a liquor store. Our liquor stores tend to be separate, although in a retail you can find wine. And they have an app called Checkers 60, I believe, which is basically like an Uber Eats app or a delivery app for you to order from, groceries, alcohol, etc., from their store. So that's what I'm drinking. So I found this as one of the options that they had on their app, and I was like, I'll give it a try. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. I'm usually more of like a blend, a pinotage type of fan, but I thought I'd try out a Pinot Noir because I guess Pinot Noir is not, it's in a similar body of tastes that I appreciate about pinotage, just lighter. Anywho, so here's my possibility pile. So I've got a lot of books here. I'm going to put up one. So there's this one. You got to grab the, sorry, and then there's this pile. Because I defo couldn't have them in all because I think you wouldn't even be able to see my face. Alrighty, so please don't mind the bags under my eyes. I'm so aware of them. I really don't. I struggle to sleep. I've accepted that's my lot in life, but I need to put a mask on my face to kind of count all of that. All right, so we're going to go through the possibility pile. So basically, my theme for the month of August is that I am not going to read any books authored by a man. That's it. It's going to be books that are authored by women, people who identify as women, and non-binary. And yeah, I think that's it. But in terms of my books here, I think I only have one non-binary rep to be, unfortunately, but at least I have some rep. And this is a book I'm definitely going to be reading. This is You Made a Fool Out of Death with Your Beauty by Kwekwe Emezi. So I bought this book, not this particular one, but the book in Ghana when I was there in Ghana, and then I left it on the plane because I was so excited about this book. I took it out to read. The guy I was seated next to wouldn't stop talking, and then I passed out. and I put it in the pocket instead of leaving it on my desk, on my lap, or putting it back in my bag. And then when we were landing, I remember saying, "Take it out the pocket," and then he basically pulled out my bag, and so I got up to get it, and I completely forgot it in the pocket. And I tried to get it back and I couldn't, but thankfully it was available on Takealots. I ordered it and it arrived. But I'm so into other books that I haven't had an opportunity to read this. Plus, I decided that July was a month for really focusing on fantasy as much as possible. And as this is a romance, I decided that I would read this in the month of August. So this is one book definitely going to be reading. Another book that I'm hoping to get to, not sure if it's a definite, is Manchester Happened by Jennifer Nansibuga Makumbi. Look at us matching. I actually am about halfway through it. I have read it before. I just want to finish my reread. I love this collection of short stories about Ugandan expatriates who are based in Manchester, Manchester in the United Kingdom, or in England specifically. And Jennifer Nansibuga is my favorite author. I've read it before. I just want to finish the reread. I also want to have Jennifer on my story graph as most read author. I'd like to have her on that. For sure, once I finish this, Akwekwe will be on there because I read Bitter earlier this year, and I've read The First Woman. So once this is done, I have both of them on there. Then another book, it's quite a small one, so I think I can get to it, I really want to get to, is Kathy Park Hong, Minor Feelings. So I got this book last year, and I got it after, there was a big movement and big protests happening around the Stop Asian and Asian Pacific Islander hate in the US. And a lot of people were making reference to this book by Kathy Park Hong, which I have to admit, I really did like the first couple of essays that I have read, but I hit a reading slump. So I really would like to get back into it this month. It's a collection of essays around what it means to be a model minority in the US, but also not be considered American. And I'm honestly really excited to read it. Then a book that I have to read is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. When I got this book in April, in fact, when I ordered it or when I selected it from Pre-Lab Books SA, I was like, I'm going to read this. I wanted to read this in Feb, but I didn't have it. And then I was like, okay, I'll wait for it to arrive. And then it arrived in April and I didn't read it and I hit a reading slump. So, because I was hoping to read it in June because I thought it would be appropriate. 7 days in June, read it in June, maybe read it in 7 days. I've heard nothing but amazing things about Tia Williams' writing. And so once I finish this, and if I love this, I'm going to get her new book, which I can't recall, but I will put an image up here or the other way, whichever works. But yeah, so that's going to be another romance that I want to get to. So I'm going like romance serious. And so the next one is also another non-fiction book by another Asian American, and this one is Chanel Miller, Know My Name. Now I actually own this on my Kindle, but when I saw that I could get a physical copy in South Africa, I got one. Chanel Miller is a survivor of the Stanford sexual assault case. And one thing I really always get fascinated by, and please, if anyone knows, please tell me, is there a reason why people use sexual assault over rape? I always find, and this is just my opinion, I always feel like it's meant to be like a euphemism, like a softening of it. And I fear that when we make a euphemism of it and we soften it, that what we do is we enable the perpetrator to get away with it because suddenly it seems like the crime wasn't as bad as if we said this person raped her. And I say this as a survivor myself of rape, and I find it fascinating, and I stand like, please, I'm here to be educated. I just want to understand, because I know when I say rape, people look at me like, what are you saying? It's meant to be sexual assault. I've just never been comfortable with that terminology because I've always felt that it's meant to, it protects the perpetrator more than it does the survivor, especially in the long run. But what I love about what I've heard about this book, so I follow Chanel on Instagram and I just love her the personality that she portrays, the artwork that she creates and shares on her platform. And I think it's so important that what she does in here, and so brave, is to go through the entire procedure and from her perspective, because throughout this court case, she was anonymous. We all knew, I forgot his name now, Brock Turner. He was the infamous Olympic swimmer whose career was coming to an end and only got 6 months in jail. So disgusting. But I've heard nothing but amazing things about this, and so I'm really keen to read this this month. Right, then this is a book that is scaring me a bit because it's so big. It's so big. Look how big it is. Look how big it is. I couldn't get the sticker off. You know, people complain about like here. There's just realized there's a Reese sticker here. So people complain about these stickers, right? Reese's stickers. I really don't like them. I wish I could find a way to remove this. But sometimes even our book stores and their stickers, I suppose I could put some steam over it, and it's just such a mission. Anyway, so A Family Affair by Sue Nyati. Sue Nyati's book Gold Diggers, I read that in 2020 and absolutely loved that. That was her sophomore novel. This is her third novel. I still have not bought nor read The Polygamist, her debut novel, which I hear is really good. And I've heard nothing but amazing things about this. I heard that it's like a family drama. I don't know if you could call it like chick lit per se, but it's quite it's a book that's gonna make me feel things, predominantly anger. And so my one book club, we're reading this along with Six and Da's Ways of Dying. I don't own that book, plus he's a male author, so I'm definitely not going to be reading it. So I figured, let me read at least one of the books if I can't read both of them. And so I'm keen to read it, despite the fact that it's so big. The upside is it's only 456 pages. It's just a lot of just really big fonts, I suppose. Then the next book I really want to get into is Susanna Clarke's Piranesi, and I really want to read it because I've heard nothing but amazing things about this. So originally I was planning on reading this book for when I'm planning to read some Greek mythology, because I thought it was a Greek mythological retelling, and then I saw some booktube reviews and they were basically saying I thought it was Greek mythology and it's not. And so I know that it is like fantasy, and so I should have read it as part of my July kind of plan of books to read. And I just don't have capacity to. So I thought, okay, if I have capacity to this month, this is definitely one of the books that I want to read. I hear it's like really light-hearted and just heartwarming, and so I'm keen. I'm keen to have my heart warmed. Now we're back to some serious books, and that is 491 Days by the late Winnie Madikizela Mandela. So if you are unaware of who Winnie Madikizela Mandela is or was, she was the former wife of the former president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. And this book basically is a collection of letters that she wrote during that time, journal entries or diary entries that she wrote when she was basically held under house arrest for 491 days. So she was a rabble rouser. She was a person who was really antagonizing against the apartheid regime and the apartheid government during I guess this was the 60s and the 70s, when she finally got arrested and they decided that they didn't want to have her murdered because she could have been murdered for what she was doing. That's how crazy the apartheid government was. They didn't want to make a martyr out of her, and they didn't want to put her in jail either, because they'd seen how that had really elevated Nelson Mandela's status. Like, he became legendary, and so they basically wanted people to forget about her. And so they took her to a town in a province that she had never grown up in. She had no familial ties to. She had never lived in it. And so she was not able to get any kind of support. So her neighbors could actually isolate her and ignore her. And basically they wanted to break her mind. She had 2 young daughters at the time. I genuinely am unsure if she was isolated along with them or if she was separated from them during this 491-day period. And if I'm honestly lying, I don't know the full extent of this, but I do want to read this because I think it's important, given what the month of August is a reminder of, that this is one of our, stalwarts, so our political activists that does not get as much recognition as she should. Hey, editing Charlie over here. Sorry about the really grainy lighting. But so I'm about 70% of the way through 491 days, and I have realized I completely misunderstood what the book was about. Whilst her banning to Brandfort in Orange Free State did happen, it would happen after this period. This period of 491 days is describing just how the apartheid government started to up their ante in terms of how they treated her as persona non grata. I think Nelson Mandela had been in Robben Island at this stage, I think for 5 years. And I guess all of the things that they were doing to try and keep the ANC and other political parties banned wasn't working. And so they started increasing the pressure that they were putting on to anyone who was deemed to be a persona non grata. And when the late Winnie Madikizela Mandela was one of those people. So the 491 days was her being kept in a prison in Pretoria and mostly in isolation. So the banning and being kept in house arrest in Brandfort Free State did happen, but this would happen a few years later. All right. Then these other books are books that I hope to get to, because there's quite a bit, and I'm not that fast of a reader. So the 5th season. I was hoping to read this in the month of July, but I am still reading The Grace of Kings, which I'm loving, and I'm not ready to put it down, as well as 2 other books for another book club on this Saturday. So when I'm recording this is in July. And so I know I'm not going to get to this, but it is something I really, really want to read. N.K. Jemisin's The 5th Season. I've heard nothing but amazing things about the Broken Earth trilogy, and I own all 3 books, but I just want to kick it off by reading the first one. And I feel like once I finish this one, I'll be ready to read books 2 and 3. So it's a possibility pile, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Another possibility pile, and I added this because it's quite short. It's like 100. It's 210 pages, so it's actually not that short, but it seems like it's quite short. And that's The Mad Women's Ball. My best friend Lee gifted me this book by Victoria Mass. It was originally written in French and it's been translated into English. So that's cool to have like some translated work, because I don't think I have any other translated work. Yeah, none of my other books are translated, so it's nice to get some translation work in here. So that's really cool for my diversity of reading. And in essence, this book is set in an asylum in Paris in the 1800s, where women are basically sent here if they don't comply, I suppose. And once a year, the psychiatrist throws a mad women's ball. And in this particular year, there's a new resident who basically rocks the system. So it sounds really good, sounds really up my alley. My best friend thinks I would love it. So I'd like to get to that. Another possibility is Zainab Takes New York by by Aisha Haruna Atta. This is what happens when you try to read it from the other side. And I really enjoyed the 100 Wells Asalaga that was Aisha's debut novel. I have not read anything else of theirs, but when I heard that this one is being adapted for TV, I believe, it's a TV series. I don't think it's a movie. I don't know. It's being adapted for film. I was like, I really, really need to read this. What is it about? No clue, but I know I'll love it. So hoping to get to this. If not, definitely want to read it in September. All right. Then another big book that I really have been dying to read for the longest of times is Jade City by Fonda Lee, which has been adapted to a TV series. I'm not sure when it gets released, though. I'm hoping it gets released only next year, because I don't own Jade War and Jade Legacy, and I've heard nothing but amazing things about Jade Legacy. So I really need to get through this to get to Jade War, to get to Jade Legacy, and I hear it just gets better every single book. Don't ask me what this book is about. I'm sure you know what it's about. It's all over BookTube and Bookstagram. But I'm really, really keen to read this, to love it, in preparation for its adaptation. And then the last two possibilities, and I say last two, and the truth is there's probably more, because I've got another book club that has, I cannot recall what those books are, so I know that there's potentially more than that, and I haven't been counting, but I'll count now how many there are. Elif Shafak's the Island of Missing Trees. I've heard nothing but amazing things of this, and this was shortlisted for the, well, it's been shortlisted for the Costa Novel Award. It's also been shortlisted for the Women's Fiction Award. And I've heard that people really, really, really loved this. So I'm keen to get into it. I was also quite pleasantly surprised that it's a feature of Cyprus. And I am putting myself on this challenge to read, books that are more representative of different spaces. I count Elif Shafak, as much as she is British, I count her as a Turkish author, especially because a lot of her books are take place in Turkey. Well, I guess this one takes place in Cyprus, but it is a love between a Cypriot or a Greek person and a Turkish person. So there is still Turkish rep in here, but I am keen to get into it to understand and learn more about what this book is about, and then to determine if this counts as British, whether it's a Turkish reading, a British reading, or a Cypriot one, based on just the three representations that are there. And the last book that I have here on my possibility pile is Sula by Toni Morrison. What's so funny is I actually should have a bookmark in here. I don't know where it is. So I was meant to have read this book with book club in April, and I started it, but for whatever reason I just really couldn't get into it. I don't know why, but it's an interesting book, and I really do want to finish it. I've never read a Toni Morrison book. I've heard this is the easiest one to get into Toni's works, and so I really do want to finish it so that I can see if I'm going to try out anything else by Toni Morrison. So there you have it. I have 14 books as part of my possibility pile. Am I going to read all of these? I highly doubt it. I think the ones that I know for sure are going to be for sure these 5, as well as these 3. So there's 8 books that I for sure want to read, on top of the others that I cannot recall now from my other book club. And then I have on bonus books, another 6 bonus books that I would love to get to. They're not stacked in the order that I'll read them, mainly because it depends on my mood. So for example, if I have the capacity for something really short and maybe something that I can escape in, I might check out The Mad Woman's Ball. If I really want to go back into fantasy, the fifth season might be the one. If I feel like I want an extension of, because I'm currently reading The Grace of Kings, if I want an extension of that world, but in more modern times than what is represented in The Grace of Kings, Jade City might be the one. So we'll see. Let me know what you've got planned to read in the month of August. If you've read any of the books that I've showcased, what you thought about them, about my question around why it's more appropriate to use the term sexual assault. I'm honestly here to learn, and I know I probably could have Googled this, but I think sometimes you can Google and you can find things. Conscious bias sometimes can come into play, and I tend to find that some of the most interesting lessons that I learned or points are from different points of view. Yeah. So happy Women's Month if you are South African. If you're not, celebrate it along with us. And I encourage you to read a book by a South African author, a woman author, or a non-binary author. And let me know what books you're planning on reading this month, especially if they're by women and non-binary authors. Cheers.